Are you ready?
Yeah, I'm ready.
Okay, we're going live now. Welcome to BAM Fight Club. I'm Colby. This is Fern. We're previewing UFC Fight Night, Blachowicz versus Rakic, taking place tomorrow, May 14th at the UFC Apex in Las Vegas, Nevada. And first up on the main card, we have Jake Hadley versus Alan Nascimento. Hadley coming in as a negative 220 favorite. Nascimento coming in as a plus 180 underdog. What are your thoughts on this one, Fern?
Great fight between two up and coming guys. Alan Nascimento had a really close loss his last fight. I think it was a split decision. Really great back and forth fight with one of I believe it's like one of Khabib's friends, training partners, Russian guy. Jake Hadley is making his debut coming from Cage Warriors. Both these guys, I think, have a great future in the UFC. Nascimento has great grappling, great striking, great transitions, was able to just constantly keep rolling and moving with any submissions, any attacks that were going on. I think he's going to be hard to stop or hard to kind of put in a difficult position. Hadley, I think, probably might be the next up and coming guy who has a fan base that is growing. He definitely comes out to stand in the middle, put pressure, go forward. I saw one of his knockouts in Cage Warriors where he was like put on his back foot, like he was going forward and he was like countered a couple times, but then once he starts landing, he just unloads and it's amazing to watch. You get a chance to watch any of those Cage Warriors ones or Nascimento's last fight?
No, I did not. But yeah, this I think is interesting. Hadley undefeated, fighting out of England. So another one of these up and coming England fighters like Patty Pemlet and what's her name who fought with Patty had that crazy elbow knockout.
Meatball. All I know is her
Meatball, yeah,
meatball.
yeah, yeah. So here's another one to add to the pack. There's going to be some great UFC pay per views. I feel like in England in the coming years because these guys coming out in England now. Um, don't really know much about these two other than Hadley. You know, seeing him on the Dana White Contender Series, he ended up winning by submission in the second round. Nascimento, he has one fight in the UFC, also has a fight on Dana White's Contender Series, but it was the Brazil Series. And I don't understand this because he lost on the Dana White Contender Series. He's lost his first UFC fight. And so I don't know. What are your thoughts on his skills? Like why is he in this position?
He's tall for the weight class. Both of the guys are. He's 5'8". At that height, most of those fighters are fighting at 145, 155. Has great countering, great movement, great. I think he's pretty well rounded. I'm trying to think of who I would compare him to because he got taken down a couple times and he was just throwing up submissions left and right. He got mounted, essentially transitioned to an armbar, was able to roll the guy into the armbar and then stand himself up. He is a guy that I don't think you can put in a position that's difficult for him. I don't see him being able to be pinned down and kind of just held there. Hadley's style definitely is more of that, like, I am the guy, I am coming after you, I will put you wherever I want. The head kick KO I saw in Cage Warriors was, I thought at first it was a body kick on the left side, but he kicked through the guy's defense. So kicked the forearm, ended up hitting him. Guy goes down, like stands up. He starts going for the body. Guy falls down. He like wraps around him like he's gonna go for a takedown, and kind of does the Khabib style like leg lock where he wraps his legs around theirs and then just starts doing like left hook, and just out after the first punch. So he's got a lot of power, a lot of skill, a lot of control. Definitely, I see this being a very entertaining fight because they're going to keep it standing. Nascimento last fight, I think, wanted to keep it standing, but those Russian fighters, that are training with Khabib and Javier Mendez at American Kickboxing Academy, really utilize their wrestling very well. But Nascimento was able to keep throwing submissions up. So I think this is an up and comer fight for sure. And like you mentioned, this is just going to set up future fights in England, hopefully all day long.
Yeah, and Hadley's got a lot of takedowns, and Nascimento's got a lot of submissions. So I expect this one will go to the ground. I'm guessing based on just like the fight stats, but maybe Hadley's going to want to keep it standing because Nascimento is such a submission artist. Maybe he'll have the advantage in the striking. Although Nascimento has, I mean, he's got, it looks like better striking stats to me in terms of volume and in terms of accuracy. So I don't know. I don't know how to, based on the stats and these guys' histories, like what is each one of their strategies going to be going into it. I think it's hard to tell, but should be interesting. So do you've got a favorite in this one?
I want to say Nascimento. I really liked what he showed his last fight. I think when you're fighting a grappling heavy person, it's hard to look impressive. It's hard to look offensive, especially those guys who are training with Khabib. But he definitely was able to hold his own and make some attacks happen. Hadley, I think, is young. It'll be interesting to see how he responds to the attention. First big fight in the UFC, coming abroad, having to train, all that stuff. I think it might be just too much for him to overcome. I'm picking Nascimento, probably by
All right.
decision because they're both young and can probably hang for a while.
Yeah. Underdog pick. All right. Mark that one. That's where you put your money, on the underdog. Next up we've got Frank Camacho versus Manuel Torres. This one's pretty even on the odds. And yeah, Frank Camacho, he's coming off of two losses. This is his about seventh fight in the UFC. But one thing of note that jumps out right away is where this guy's coming fighting out of, Northern Marianas. Marianas. I'm not even sure how to say that exactly. Have you ever heard of this place? Do you know anything about
No,
where this guy's fighting out of?
I just know where he's affiliated. Timoyama. I think they're Huntington Beach. Hometown, is where I'm
Okay.
from. Shout out. But Timoyama used to do like train Rampage Jackson, a couple other fighters in the UFC and stuff like that come across there and train. So it looks like he's got a solid camp in preparation. I do not know where he's from though. That's hey, the UFC's going international, man. I don't think we're gonna know. Like you're gonna be new countries and everything developing all these
Yeah,
years.
I looked this up and I don't
Guam,
even see an English explanation. It's Guam.
Guam.
Okay. It says U.S. Commonwealth in the Pacific Ocean.
Yeah,
So
Saipan, Northern Mariana Islands.
wow. Okay. So
I want to hear his
that's
story
crazy.
about how he got introduced to UFC. Like,
Yeah. If you look at this on a map, this is like this tiny. Yeah, like you said, it's even smaller than Guam. It's like a little speck next to Guam out in the middle of the ocean. And yeah, this guy makes his way into the UFC. Yeah, that sounds like a amazing backstory. I can't. I hope they tell a little bit about it in the lead up to the fights for sure. But I don't. He's fought in the UFC a few times. I'm trying to recall in my mind some of his fights, but nothing's really ringing a bell with me. Whereas with Torres, I do recall, probably because he fought fairly recently on the Dana White Contender Series. He ended up getting a win, that first round KO in his fight. So definitely exciting fighter there with Camacho. Also, maybe here's another reason it doesn't ring a bell. His last fight was in June of 2020. And yeah, so what do you got any thoughts on how the styles are going to play out? What are the strategies going to be for each of
yeah,
these guys?
looking into Camacho, I've seen a couple of his sites, and he's definitely wrestling heavy, but he was a 2006 Micronesian Games wrestling gold medalist. So I think he's bringing that wrestling pedigree, that wrestling style. I think I will always root for the older guy. I'm gonna root for Frank Camacho. I think he's I want to see where it goes. I want to see him keep representing whatever country he claims. It says it's Guam, but Northern Mariana Islands. And it's too bad that like they're not allowing flags anymore because I'd love for him to be out there like showing off his heritage, his culture, and people be like, "What flag is that?" Like,
Yeah, yeah, it's interesting. It almost looks, it's like a Ford logo almost.
like a Ford logo.
It's interesting. No disrespect to the people of the place next to Guam, but yeah, They need to hire a graphic designer on that flag. Now I'd be interested to hear what's the story behind that one. It's super tiny on the ESPN website, so I can barely see it. So before anybody on the internet rages on me, just playing around. Uh, this one should be interesting. That when you look at the stats, it's kind of crazy. I mean, the stats, it's hard to read a lot into with guys who haven't had a lot of UFC fights because it's hard to know, what those stats really mean. And when I'm looking at Torres' stats, he's only got, one fight in Dana White Contender Series, first round KO. He's got a lot of first round wins, but I don't know how they calculate these stats, but it says 11.54 significant strikes landed per minute, which is an absolute insane stat. If he can
Yeah,
if he could even make half of that volume, and the guy he's gone against has got 6.67, which is also fairly high significant strikes, and he's got more fights in the UFC, so that
he's
I
got
feel like is a little bit more of a solid number.
way
But
more knockouts. Camacho's got 77% of his wins by knockout, and
yeah,
he's throwing
so
less volume compared to Torres. It's
yeah, and
crazy.
but like I said, Torres, they're not UFC fights, so maybe that's the explanation on the higher output. But you would also, yeah, like you just brought up, you would expect maybe his KO ratio would be higher. So it's interesting though, because they got Torres. He's got these wins by submissions and KOs that I guess are not being counted in these UFC stats. So they must not count the stats from either certain organizations or maybe they're just for UFC. Not not quite sure what they're basing those on. If it's just that one fight, that would explain maybe why it's so high. But uh, yeah, this one should be interesting. Camacho is what is he 5'10"? Yeah, so these guys are pretty equal in height, similar in weight, similar in reach. A little bit of advantage to Torres in the leg reach, but yeah, I mean, by looking at these, I'm guessing Camacho is going to go for a takedown, even though he's got these uh, KOs on his record, because he's going against a guy, if I'm recall correctly, on Dana White Contender Series, but also looking at his record, a guy with a lot of first round wins is going to be an explosive fighter, and I feel like you're going against that kind of fighter. You're going to want to slow him down. So the first round, you come out, you take him down, you wear him a little bit to kind of take off some of that explosiveness, and then rounds 2 and 3, try to get your work done, because Camacho, even though he does have a good amount of finishes, it's definitely nothing like the amount of first round wins, uh, or at least in the second half of his career. The first half of his career, I think the first 8 fights were first round wins for Camacho. So I don't know. I'm back and forth. I don't even know what I'm saying anymore. What are your do you got any more thoughts on this matchup?
Camacho's got a ton of experience. I'd like to see where he's going, and like you really haven't heard much about him. Torres, he's got a great record. Guy coming up from Mexico, and it'd be interesting to see who he's training with, who he's connected with, because it seems like a lot of those guys are affiliated somehow. And so excited to see what he can bring and what style, because we really don't know much about these guys, you know.
Yeah. All right. Well, we'll see what they bring to the table. The next fight up on the card, two fighters that are much better known: Caitlin Chikagian and Amanda Ribas. Chikagian coming in as the favorite, -160. Ribas coming in plus 135 underdog. I can't. I love watching Amanda Ribas's fights because I love hearing her in the interviews leading up to the fight. I love hearing her after the fights. She's just like seems like a super happy go lucky kind of person. But when she's in the ring, man, her jujitsu is very impressive, at least to me. Um, she ran into some trouble 2 fights back against Rodriguez, but I believe that was a yeah. She ended up losing in the second round in that fight, but she is coming off of a win against Jandaroba, who I think is also on this card, if I recall correctly. Yeah, she's on the prelims. So Ribas coming off a win. She had a good streak of wins before the loss 2 fights ago. And Chukagian's coming off of a 3-fight win streak. And her last loss was to Jessica Andrade in 2020. And yeah, both these fighters, great fighters. Chukagian, obviously, near the top of the division. Uh, I'm rooting for Rebus because I just love her story. I love the interviews, and I think she's an exciting fighter. Not the super dynamic striker necessarily, but like I said, that jujitsu, man, it seems so slick when she's in the octagon. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, and I think you bring up a good point. Her jiu-jitsu is going to be the equalizer in this. On UFC.com, she's ranked number 9. Caitlin Chikugian ranked the number 1 contender. That is a big jump. I think when's the last time we saw one? Oh, I think we saw one recently where we had somebody take on a number 1 or a high-ranking one and come out and beat them.
Well,
And
Kamzat versus Gilbert Burns,
that's
wasn't
right. Yeah, yeah,
Kamzat?
yeah. Because he
He was
wasn't.
like
Not,
14 or something. I don't remember
yeah,
what
not in
his
the
rank
top
was.
10. So
Yeah.
I think this is a very exciting fight. The women have been putting on shows nonstop. Every fight card, I'm like, this is gonna be a knockout. I'm not even gonna talk about last weekend's fight with Rose and whatever, but whatever. That's a different level of championship.
That
But
was a weird one.
very. I don't expect this to be like that at all. Chu Kagan is one of my favorite female fighters. She comes out. I love her stance. I love. She's kind of got like to me. She reminds me of Wonder Boy. She's always like light on her feet, quick to tap, quick to go in, quick to go out. Always just making movement. Always just busy. Her this is one of those fighters that like her record, it being decision wins, decision losses. I don't care. It's fun to watch the whole fight. She's tagging people. She's getting tagged. It's gonna be a battle. Rebus has crazy ground game. I don't know who I could compare it to, but like I don't know what weight class she's in, but I want to see her be put up against another strong grappler because she is grappling heavy, grappling strong, but she mixes it all up. I love those fighters who have a great, strong grappling base, but still inflict damage. I love that.
Yeah, and I mean her output, Reba's output in terms of significant strikes landed per minute is still 4.65, which is a pretty good number for the number of fights that she's had in the UFC at this point. And like you said, to be that strong of a grappler, but to still have that kind of striking output, and she's got better accuracy than at least than Chikagian as far as looking at the stats, and has better striking defense in terms of the strikes absorbed. So the thing I like about Rivas' style on the ground too is she's so fast in the transitions. If you pay attention to it in this next fight, just watch how fast she can transition from one position to the next. It's pretty amazing. Another thing stands out on the physical stats between these two is Chikagian's 5'9", Rivas is 5'4". So Chikagian's got 5 inches of height but only 2 inches of reach. So I feel like Rebus has those long arms, that are, even though she's quite a bit shorter. And the long arms, obviously, helpful for generating power when it comes to strikes. Chikagan, though, does have the 5-inch reach advantage in the legs. So I'm expecting Chikagan's probably going to be throwing some kicks to keep that distance and keep Rebus off of her. Is my expectation for how Chikagan's going to try to stay on the outside, try to use her height, try to use her reach, and I think if she's smart, she's going to be throwing a lot of those front push kicks to keep the distance,
Hmm.
where she can. It'll make room for her to throw the strikes from the outside. Rebus probably going to be one to penetrate and get to this ground, taking it to the ground as fast as possible. And in terms of odds, not only do I want Rebus to win, but I also think logically that she has an advantage, even though there is that big disparity in ranking, and Chikagan's definitely got her in terms of the experience. Man, Rebus, when she came into the UFC, she was just on fire, and even though she ran to a bit of a roadblock, like I said, 2 fights back, she's looked so good in every fight. I think yeah, she's going to be around for a while, and I can definitely see her in the top five, especially if she gets this win over Chikagian. She should definitely be in the top five. But I see her hanging out in the top five. I put her in that class before she 2-3 fights back because she's also been consistently good. it wasn't just a single performance. So
Yeah, and Ribas has a decision win over Mackenzie Dern, who right now has been like tearing it up and on a roll. Just another person who is really strong grappling based attack. And Ribas, I remember that like definitely was in control, was the one determining where everything went. So for her to have that kind of outcome against another grappler just kind of goes to show how dangerous she's going to be on the ground. Caitlin Chukagian has great stand up. I'm excited. This is going to be, I think, even though there's grappling involved, there's going to be a ton of strikes going on.
yeah,
They both have great striking rates.
absolutely. And next up on the card, we have another England fighter, Davy Grant versus Lewis Smolka. Grant coming in as a pretty big favorite, negative 280, Smolka plus 230 underdog. And Davy Grant, another excellent fighter out of England. He's coming off of two losses, but I feel like his fights have been exciting. I don't feel like he was steamrolled. He's had two decision losses. His last one was split decision. Before that, he had two KO wins. Uh, it's a guy who can take punishment and still be dangerous. I feel like in the third round, in the later rounds, as great conditioning. Uh, I, I think he's a great striker. I wouldn't say he's like as technically sound of a striker as like Arnold Allen, who we saw a little while ago, who I felt like just kind of gave a clinic on how to be a technically great striker in terms of defense, the form, everything. David Grant, I feel like has a little bit unorthodox of a striking style, but it's really effective and he hits hard. He's got the power, so he can knock guys out. And with Smolka, he's coming off of a loss against Morales. He's kind of had some ups and downs. This is his sixth fight in the UFC, so he's got some experience in the UFC. Similar to Davy Grant, the records also are pretty similar in terms of wins and losses in the UFC. Um, yeah, what are your thoughts on Smolka and Grant?
I think this is going to be a great fight. Both these guys are, looking to bounce back from losses. Again, like it's surprising me when these guys are like 5'8", 5'9", and cutting to like 135, man. That's outrageous. Like I could not imagine that, but they're doing so and having success. David Grant has fought in UFC, I think 9 times already, and we like if you're familiar with UFC at all, you've seen Luis Smolka fight before, and I think it's going to be a stand-up fight for sure. I don't see let's look at their what they're doing.
Real quick, Caitlin says hi, Bam. Hi, Caitlin. And Phil says he's got Rebus. He's made a lot of female bets on this card, and he thinks Smolka is too inconsistent. All right, thanks for that, Phil.
They have a pretty close significant strike rate. You know, even absorb per minute. This is pretty close. Grappling, takedowns, everything, accuracy, takedown defense goes to Grant. Submission average, Smolka. So if it goes to the ground, it looks like they're going to be pretty evenly matched all the way around. I would want to say I'm picking Davy Grant because I want another great England card. Give me.
Yeah.
I'm just gonna start being like England all day. Like,
So even though Smolka has a higher KO percentage, I feel like Smolka is more of the ground fighter, and Davy Grant definitely more of the stand up fighter. Even though a lot of their stats are kind of similar, I feel like Smolka is probably going to want to take this to the ground. I feel like Davy Grant is just going to be too dangerous in the stand up. Like I said, he's lost his last two decisions, but they a few of there's he gets into some slugfest, and yeah. So my thought is Smoke is going to want to take this to the ground. David Grant's going to want to keep it up standing. Either way, it's going to be good because both of them are great all around MMA fighters. So in terms of who am I picking, I think David Grant's gonna win. And do you got any predictions about how it's going to end? I think it is going to be a KO in the second round. Is my thought.
I think so as well. I think he's been able to show that he's got a consistent striking output and consistent striking defense. I think that right now just it's hard to bet against those fighters from England. They're just coming like I'm hoping ready to take over. Let's
Yeah.
we need another new exciting fighters, and I think the English fighters are doing a great job of representing for sure.
All right. Well, next up on the card, we've got Ryan Spann versus Kutalaba. Spann coming in plus 200 underdog, Kutalaba negative 240 favorite. And this is another one I think there's a very high chance it's going to end in a KO. Uh, even though Spann has some submissions on his record and Kutalaba's got a few, he's also got a lot of KOs on his record. Kutalaba is the kind of guy, it seems like he's going in there to get the KO or to be KO'd because he's also been KO'd a few times. So, um, but I feel like his fights are exciting because he's going in there to finish the fight. Even though his last win was by decision, he's his game plan is definitely to get that finish as soon as possible. What are your thoughts on this one?
Span has had some great fights. I know I've picked him a couple of times to win. Even though his last fight was a loss, I was expecting him to come out and put on a show. He's massive. He's 6'5". I don't know how he's making. And he's just muscular guy. Kutalaba, I don't know. I can't ever be a fan of the guy. Like I just don't like any of the shenanigans he does. And yeah, I call him shenanigans because it's nonsense. I'm sick. I still will forever just hope that he gets knocked out because I hate that stupid possum fight that he tried to play possum. Then he got knocked out, so his redemption was had. Uh,
the,
but
the possum fight.
the possum fight. You remember that? Where he like they're like he's rocked, no he's not, and ref stops it, and they're like he wasn't rocked, he was playing possum, and I was like no, he got tagged. And then in the rematch he got knocked out, so it was like
Oh,
all
okay.
doubt was removed. But
Oh, against was it against Onkolov?
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Okay,
And
yeah.
so, like, even watching like how he weighs in, he's come in wearing all green, like painted green, like the Hulk, just gets in people's faces. Just, I think he's like wants to be a bully. He believes he's the Hulk, and I just love when he gets smashed. I'm going for Span. If Kutalaba wins, Span's ranked number 13 on UFC. Like that might actually, depending on how he does it, he might move up in the rankings if some people move down. He might end up top 10 sooner or later. But Span, I hope that shuts him up and puts him to sleep quick.
All right. Well, in terms of predictions, I'm predicting. I am going to predict that Kudalaba is going to win. I agree with the odds makers. Uh, yeah, I hadn't wasn't talking as much about outside of the ring, but in terms of his fighting style, I like his fighting style, which is maybe it's the attitude that pushes him into it, but he's the kind of guy who he's going to knock the guy out or he's going to get knocked out. Kind of
Yeah.
almost like that Justin Gagey style where he's going to force exchanges, and yeah, even if he's not the smartest fighter in terms of strategy, like you mentioned, 2 losses in a row to Onklev not too long ago. But I do think that he's going to win. Span. His best chance for winning is keeping it standing up and trying to pick him apart by just getting in, keeping it at bay with the jab and doing the 1-2 and staying on the outside. But I think it's going to turn into more of a scuffle and more of a dirty fight. I think Kudala was probably going to rush him a bit and try to crowd him and pressure him. And I think that kind of fight is going to favor Kudalaba. But yeah, I mean, could easily go either way. I don't know why the odds are as much in favor as Kudalaba as they are.
What are they officially?
Well, ESPN has Kudalaba at a negative 240 favorite.
Hmm.
I feel like it's maybe a little bit closer than that myself. Span has the win over Sam Alvey.
Noguera.
Yeah. Uh, I mean, Kudalaba's wins against Roundtree. Um, I mean, neither one of them really. I mean, have big wins on the record in terms of beating really top ranked guys. So yeah, I'm not sure what the
Yeah, Span's lost
why
to Smith and Walker, and Kudalaba's lost to Glover Teixeira and Jared Cannonier. So they both.
yeah
I was gonna say, like, given the
they lost
losses.
to high ranked guys.
Yeah.
They've lost to some big names, but neither one of them have really got wins against some big names. So will be interesting. All right, so I'm thinking Kudalaba's gonna win. You're picking Span to win this one.
Yeah. I
How do you think
tried.
Span's gonna do it?
I hope by knockout first punch.
Knockout. That 10-second Conor McGregor knockout. All right, let's talk about the main card or the main fight. Blachowicz versus Rakic. So Blachowicz, man, I was not expecting him to lose. I don't think. I mean, the odds, the odds makers didn't think it was the case. I mean, he was a big favorite going against Teixeira. I feel like, and Teixeira came out on top, and I was not expecting it to look so easy as it did for Teixeira.
Hmm.
So I was very surprised. I mean, Blachowicz has the win over Adesanya, right? How many guys can say that in the UFC? Like only one other guy in the UFC, and he didn't even beat him in the UFC. He beat him in kickboxing like 15 years ago.
Hmm.
Adesanya. I don't think anyone else has beat Adesanya in the UFC. So that's huge. And he's also got a win over Dominic Reyes, who's the guy who, in my opinion, won the fight against John Jones in
Hmm.
terms of decision. I feel like Reyes won that fight he had against John Jones. So just those two names, the fact that he's got wins over both of those guys.
Jared
Uh,
Cannonier, who's going to be fighting Adesanya for a title, who coming up.
yeah,
Um,
yeah.
yeah,
I mean,
he's got great wins for sure.
he's got great wins. He's a great fighter. And man, this guy's power. He's had that amazing submission. Uh, what was it? I don't know how long ago was that. He had that like standing. Man, I can't remember. I don't even know what to call it. That's kind of like standing rear naked choke, but
Hmm.
he's like wrapped around the side. Anyway, I love watching him fight. Great fighter. And Rakic is, man, this guy's a beast. He's got two losses on his record, and one loss, this split decision in 2019. Otherwise, he's won all of his other fights in the UFC. His last fight, or last two wins, being against Santos and Anthony Smith, both big wins for him. So, and Rakic is fighting out of Serbia. Blachowicz fighting out of Poland. This one could easily go either way. I mean, both these guys have tremendous power, so I could easily see either one of them getting knocked out. In terms of it being favored as much as it is towards Rakic, what are your thoughts about that?
I don't know. Maybe it's because of how Jan's showing was against Glover and whatever the outcome of that was. But I still think of his victory over Adesanya. Like, he was very composed, had a game plan. I think he knows that what he needs to do to get back to the top, and that's coming in methodical, having a plan, and coming forward. I think it's interesting because we just had Canelo against Dimitri Bivol, for any of you guys who follow boxing, and Israel was like knocking everyone out, and they're like, he's gonna come up and he's gonna challenge for the belt, and then you see why weight classes exist. He did nothing to Jan, just like Canelo did nothing to Dimitri Bivol, and you're
Yeah.
like, it doesn't change that he could still obliterate anyone in his weight class. So Jan has that composure when he's expecting it. I don't think anyone expected Glover to do what he did at all. Like, he's just like 40 years, 40 plus years old, has been in so many battles, and good for him. He, came back and reclaimed it. I think Jan will do what's necessary to win. I could see him going for more takedowns, mixing it up, trying to tire Rakic out, and I'd like to see him fight at the top. I want to see Jan win.
Okay, and interesting. Phil says Jan talked about how he was temporarily paralyzed from hernias a couple of months ago, uh, and he's 40 years old. So yeah, if that's true, that could be another reason. So yeah, Rakic definitely has the momentum in his favor. Jan's last fight is a loss. It's never clear, especially after a guy's been on a pretty big win streak, how that's going to affect him mentally, and if he's also got the physical issues that he's dealing with, of obviously just getting up there in age, but also having hernias, man. Yeah, I wonder how that affects his conditioning. Rakic is, yeah, almost 10 years younger than him,
Yeah.
so maybe that's a lot of reason for the odds. I want to see more from Jan personally. I want to see more of those knockouts. I want to see, uh, you know, I want to see him in the top division fighting the top guys for some more time. Rakic, I mean, he's a great fighter. I look forward to seeing his fights, but this might be one where I might go with the underdog and
Yeah.
pick Jan on this one.
Yes. It's like it's been a while since we've agreed on anyone. We're like, no, we go the opposite a lot. That's good because it's funny. Like we might make picks here, and then like when it comes to like DraftKings, we like make something totally different.
Yeah. I mean, when you're picking DraftKings, though, you're always forced to make some bad decisions in terms of picking fighters you don't necessarily want. But all right, well, make sure to hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, and you got anything else to say about this card, Fern?
No, just I hope there's a ton of followers watching, joining, liking, sharing, whatever. Last week we reached like hundreds of thousands of people, over 500,000 people we reached. Brazil, Argentina, uh, appreciate the love and respect. It's
On
great.
on Facebook,
Fa-
Instagram, and Twitter, we got to get those YouTube numbers up.
Yeah, we actually kept getting
Yeah,
views on YouTube days afterwards. I don't know if you saw that, and
yeah.
even to the website. So if you could not just watch, subscribe. I know you guys subscribe to some other stuff as well, but yeah, support. It's great. Yeah, Facebook, Instagram, getting lots of love and appreciation there. We're definitely going to try to focus more on YouTube and get those numbers up. And we appreciate you guys joining us on this voyage. It's like 3 months in, and we've reached like almost 2 million people, and that is outrageous. So thank you, many thanks. We hope to keep making great content and making you guys laugh and doing this more often.
All right, bam.
Bam! By any means, get that victory.